Welcome everyone to this month's 20-minute Teamship teaching. My name's Julia Felton and I am going to be guiding you through the next 20 minutes where I've got 20 minutes to just give you loads and loads of value about team dynamics and how they're impacting you and your organization. So I've put together a short slide deck to get us going. So let's start with that. So hopefully you can see my screen there. Okay, so the topic we're going to be talking about today is the energetics of business and how nature's principles fuel sustainable team performance. And I think we can probably all agree that the one thing that we would really all like in business is sustainable team performance. We want our team members to be stepping up, taking responsibility and accountability for everything that is happening in the business. And so just like an ecosystem in nature, every business has a distinct energetic signature. It's like a vibe, a pulse, a field that influences how people feel and interact and perform. And some of you might go, oh, Julia, this is all about energy. It's a bit woo. But I know when I was in the corporate world, approaching 20 years ago now, we would never talk about the topic of energy. And it would have been very back then. But in today's environment, energy absolutely drives everything. It's a felt experience and it impacts team engagement and motivation. It impacts communication flows. It impacts decision making. It impacts innovation and adaptability and impacts trust and psychological safety. So when we use the word energy, what we're really talking about is this invisible dynamic that shapes the visible outcomes in the business. In other words, how aligned we are, or how vibrant or how stagnant the team is, or basically how the business feels. And we can all feel energy. We all know that this energy exists. Let me just give you an example. I'm sure a number of you have walked into a room and you instinctively know when something's not right. You sense the energy in the room, you sense the vibe, you know when somebody's having a bad day. We can all read this energy. It's just that many of us have got a little bit disconnected from it because it's not something we're using on a day-to-day basis. So let me just give you a few examples referenced from nature about how you might encounter different energy in your business. So think about one business might feel more like a flowing river. It might have that type of energy, which is all about collaboration, alignment, and open communication. We've got this momentum and trust and ease flowing through the business. And everyone's got a shared, strong vision and purpose about where they're going. Maybe another type of energy you might find in a business is a bit more like a stagnant pond. There's resistance to change, internal politics, disengagement, and things feel really heavy and unclear and uninspired. And sometimes we might find this in a legacy type organization where survival has replaced strategic growth and the business is just trying to get by. So in these types of organizations, we've got to inject some clarity, purpose, and adaptability. In other types of business, and I've definitely worked in these, it's a bit more wildfire energy. There's a constant hustle, high urgency, and a reactive culture. It feels like burnout is waiting to happen. And I found this to be pretty common in scale-up companies that don't have any structure or values-based alignment. And the solution is, how do we slow down to speed up? And how do we anchor the energy in clear systems and team trust? And perhaps a fourth example here is what I call windstorm energy. The characteristics of this type of culture and environment is unpredictability, chaos, change, mixed messages. There's confusion and fragmentation going on. And we find this often in rapidly shifting markets with very unclear leadership. And so the solution here is, how do we reinforce the direction and align the leadership energy and ground the teams in shared priority? So a couple of questions for you to think about as we kick this session off is, what's the current mood or atmosphere in your organization? Maybe where's your energy leaking? Or where's the energy being drained? Or perhaps you've got a situation where all the energy is being over concentrated. Maybe there's one person carrying the load. Maybe it's yourself. And how can we use people's different energies and how can we value them within the organization? Because just like a river, we need to clear energy blockages in the business. And energy gets stuck with unclear processes, poor communication, unresolved tension. So we need to create space for what we call courageous conversations to happen. This, what I call healthy conflict within the organization. We need to let the sun into the organization. Transparency is your sunlight. When people know what's going on and why it matters, they align and energize faster. So having that transparency of communication and where we're going. We also need to nourish the roots of the business. We need to invest in relationships and trust and shared purpose. Because when these roots are healthy, the team can weather the storms. And just like in nature, the trees that have a good root system survive the storms. Those that are newer, the saplings coming up, they're the ones that fall over. So how can we give our organization strong roots to weather the storms of business? And the other thing we need to remember is that we need to regulate the energy because energy isn't constant. It does ebb and flow. There's cycles of business performance, of high performance and rest. And burnout comes when we deny these seasons within the business. So what I'd like for you to think about today is how are you a conductor of the energy within your business? As a leader, you set the tone, presence, and clarity and tempo for the entire organization. So if your energy is scattered or fearful or forceful, the whole business mirrors that. Very interesting, isn't it, when you start thinking about this? So specifically today, what I want to delve into are the 5 different business energies that exist and how we can use these energies in our daily work and our daily activities to maximize productivity and profitability. So the 5 energies that exist in business are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And they all relate to different seasons. So you see there, the wood is more spring season, the fire summer, the earth late summer, the metal energy is for autumn, and the water is for winter. And in this particular diagram that I've pulled together for you, the thick arrows round the outside show the relationship between each element as one leads to the next. It's a cycle of construction and creation. So if we think about this, the water nourishes the wood, nourishes the trees so they grow. Wood feeds fire. Fire creates earth in terms of ash. Earth bears metal and metal enriches water. So we can see a positive cycle of construction. But the dotted lines there is the other dynamic. And this is the cycle of control or destruction. And what do we see here? Water extinguishes fire, but wood leaches earth of minerals. Fire melts the metal. Earth absorbs the water, and metal destroys the wood. So within everything within nature, there's a cycle of construction and a cycle of destruction. And what we want to harness is this cycle of construction that exists. So I'd like to suggest to you that there's a different energy of different business spaces that exist for us. And I like to think of the wood space as a space of creation, the fire space as a space of connection, the earth space as a space of consultation, the metal space as a space of calculation, and the water space as a space of contemplation. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive into each of these so that you can see the energy of the different spaces and really figure out what type of activities should you be doing in these different spaces. Because one of the challenges that we have in business is that we seem to use the same desk or the same location for doing all of our activities. And I'd like to suggest to you today that actually we need to find the right type of space in order to do the right type of activity. So let me just delve into this and help you understand this a bit more. So let's start with the wood space. This is the creative space. It's the season relates to spring. It's all about energy, growth, and expansion. It's about new beginnings and vision and stretching into possibility. So wood energy, this creative space, it only brings structure once the seed has sprouted. We're going to use the wood space, this creative space, for activities like strategic planning, innovation and ideation, vision mapping and goal setting. It provides this sense of what are we growing to next? Where do we want to go? And I love this phrase that we came up with. The wood energy gives us a feeling that this is your forest of potential. This is the area where new ideas sprout and vision is rooted. So creativity thrives in a space where people feel psychologically safe, free from judgment, and removed from rigid constraints. This is a space where we're accessing possibility, innovation, and imagination. And so some of the business activities that you will want to do in this wood creative space are things like visioning and strategic exploration, crafting the long-term vision of the business or reimagining the future. Maybe you want to explore new business models or go-to-market strategies. And we're always asking the question, what's possible? Or what if we started from scratch? What would we do differently? We might want to brainstorm new products or service ideas. Perhaps this is an area for designing new offers or events or client experiences and exploring what the brand could become. This is also an area where we use our creative skills to write copy, record podcast episodes, and design visuals. It's about clarifying our brand voice or our values. It's also an area where we might do a little bit of reflective work as well. But all the activities that we want to do in a wood space require openness, suspension of judgment, and curiosity. And this is why this type of space is very different from a kind of delivery space or a decision-making space. So what could this space look like and feel? It's not just a physical environment, it's an energetic and emotional container. It's a place where the environment plays a huge part in shaping the energy. So it might be somewhere that's full of natural light and open spaces, organic materials, mood boards, sketches. It's got a lot of comfort and flow here, maybe lounge style seating, movement friendly setups. And it is definitely not the rigidity of a boardroom. So the energetic feel is it's a place that's calm and alive, a sense of safety that sparks surprise. But it's quiet enough to think, but vibrant enough to feel inspired. And of course, this is a space, as we said, where there's no wrong answers. All ideas are welcome. Nothing is judged. We've got time spaciousness. Things aren't rushed. There's space to play with ideas. There's an equal voice. There's no hierarchy so that we can get different perspectives in. So that's our wood energy, the creative space that we've got in our business. Now, what's next? Our fire space. This is our connective space. It relates to the season of summer, and the energy is all about building relationships and resonance and joy. It's a place where connection and enthusiasm and warmth and truth abound. It's where we relate human to human. So some of the activities that work well in a fire space are things like sales conversations, building loyalty and client experiences, team bonding, things that have an emotional resonance. There's a kind of laughter and vibrancy and vulnerability in the fire space. combined with this energy of shared joy, because the fire draws people in. But also there is a warning about burnout here. You don't want to overflame the fire. So I like to think of this fire space as the fire pit of business. It's where connection is kindled and partnerships are sparked. And we've talked a lot on my podcast, Impactful Teamwork, which I encourage you to check out if you haven't listened to it yet, about the importance of relationships in business. So in this fire space, in this connective space, this is where we move from ideas to alignment, from isolation to partnership, from interest to commitment. This is relationship led and it's an emotionally intelligent zone. And the core activities we're going to do here are things like sales conversations, discovery and connection calls, value-based selling, partnership exploration, proposal discussions. You might want to do some onboarding of new team members, for example, or follow up with prospects and clients and collaborators. This is also perhaps a space where you might want to explore joint ventures or partnership opportunities. Things based around community and designing client experiences. So this is a place where we're all about creating resonance, a sense of, I see you, I get you, I trust you. So what type of space does this look like? It should be a space of belonging and warmth and mutual respect. A bit like gathering around a fireplace or metering a watering hole. It's a place that invites honesty, curiosity, and connection. So it's probably like to have warm lighting and soft textures, maybe even circular seating so that everyone is face to face in connection, and some kind of personal touches, because it's safe and welcoming. It's intimate, but not intrusive. And it's responsive. The energy shifts as people open up. And actually, a number of my friends use cafes. They go and hot desk in a cafe when they need to be in their fire space and they're doing activities that are all about connection. Next, let's look at our earth space. So this is our consultative space. This relates to the season of late summer, and the energy is all about stability, support, and service. Earth energy is really deeply grounding. It brings nourishment, clarity, and containment. And it's a space you're in service through delivery, guidance, and follow through. We deliver on our promises in our consultative space. We support clients with structure and consistency. And we problem solve from empathy and expertise. So this earth energy, it adds dependability and a rhythm and a cycle. Its practical wisdom is thinking about what do we need to grow. So this is the fertile field where ideas bear fruit and clients are supported with care. There's an energy of generosity here that we're holding into the space. So the types of activities that we're going to do in our consultative space is the kind of space where we get stuff done. It's our action-taking space. But we're still holding the relationships with the client. So we're blending expertise, implementation, and collaboration. So core activities here are service and solution delivery. So that may be coaching, facilitating sessions. You might even do something like a strategic review here, or implementation planning, or running workshops, or maybe even giving feedback on a project on where we are on key milestones. It's a great space for problem solving and answering client questions, unblocking challenges, and diagnosing what's really going on beneath the surface. It's a great area for ongoing client engagement, checking calls with clients, as I said, project reviews, midpoint reflections, and maybe a realignment around goals and scope. So this is the place where we move from possibility to performance. So this type of space is like to be clear, focused, and supportive. It's got very accessible tools, perhaps whiteboards, models, agendas, things that we need. client-friendly visuals, got some reliable tech in place here. It's a clean, structured environment with good lighting, timelines, and visuals. There's kind of no clutter here. There's the energetic field of we're here to move forward, to get stuff done. So there's a space for honesty with a container for progress. I think there's also what we tend to find in the earth space is there's a shared ownership, that we're in this together. It's not an us versus them. And it's an area where we can ask questions. Curiosity is welcomed. But we've also got this big delivery mindset of tangible actions, and real progress are the goals. Now, what about our metal space, our calculative space? So this relates to the season of autumn, and the energy is all about precision, discernment, and value. Metal brings refinement, clarity, and discernment. It cuts through the noise and emotion to get to the essence of what's going on. And this is the space for metrics, financial controls and standards, maybe legal aspects, compliance systems, KPIs. It's all about evaluating what is going on so that we can keep going forward. Because metal adds order and structure, but without rigidity. And this is often where the gold is extracted in our business. I like to think of this metal space as this is the forge, where data sharpens insight and clean systems create freedom. So this calculative space is where data speaks, systems guide, and precision matters. It's about clarity, measurement, and control. So the core business activities are, as we said, things like financial management, budgeting, forecast, cash flow, data analytics, reviewing KPIs and performance dashboards, assessing the ROI, conversion rates and sales metrics, maybe evaluating productivity and resource allocation. This is a space where we'll do a lot of our compliance oversight and our risk analysis. So things like auditing and quality assurance, maybe even safety reviews, legal and contractual analysis, and governance and data protection. It's also an area where we'd look at things like our SOPs and our workflows, our time tracking, and our resources. And we like to think sometimes of this calculative space as the backbone of the business. It enables things to happen sustainably and safely. So the area is going to be one that's very structured, very focused. It's about precision, order, and logic. It might be quite clean and minimal and distraction-free. Perhaps a sort of place where you'd have dual screens, spreadsheets, a lot of software, high-quality lighting, and ergonomic furniture. It's a place that's calm, serious, and focused. There's no chaos or mess here. And it's generally a slightly slower paced place, allowing for depth, accuracy, and detail. It's a place for high trust in the systems. Let's check the numbers. It's where we delve into the detail. And it's a place where decisions are backed by data. That's why we have this certainty and clarity. And there's also a comfort with repetition, that we're checking and rechecking that everything is right. And there's a low tolerance for ambiguity because of this level of precision. And finally, the other space I want you to think about today is the water space, the contemplative space. And the season here is winter. And this is about energy, stillness, wisdom, and restoration. And water is a source. It holds depth, reflection, and truth. It invites pause, integration, and a wisdom that comes from not knowing. It's a great place for end of cycle reviews, where we're reviewing maybe what happened in the week or the month or even the year. And there's a lot of deep listening to our intuition about what is unseen. There's flow and flexibility in this space, and there's a kind of regenerative power that comes through water. So this is a bit like the still lake. It's the place where truth surfaces and clarity returns. So in the contemplative space, I think the types of activities that do well here are things like integration, reflectioning, and renewal. It's about digesting what's happened and thinking about what we can do differently to move forward. It's a place where we can reconnect with our vision and purpose. Why are we doing our business? What's going on? Checking that maybe we're even still on track and are we on the path that matters? It's also a place where we can course correct based on the inner knowing of what we need to do. It's a place of rest and regeneration, stepping away and gaining perspective on everything that's going on. It's a place where we can slow down so clarity can catch up. And this type of space is perhaps the most subtle of all the spaces. I find it's quite a personal space, and everyone likes the way it looks differently for them. It's really set by the tone and the spaciousness and the intention. But it's a kind of quiet, calming, soothing environment. It's got a lot of natural elements around it, and it's usually quite comfy. So let me share with you my contemplative space. When I used to have one, was my hot tub. I loved going in there. Not only was it a water space, literally, but it was the space where I was able to really decompress and reflect. When I worked in the corporate world, it was a place where I reflected on the day and what had happened and what I needed to do differently the next day. It's unhurried and gentle space. There's no pressure to produce. But there's an openness to insight and doing things differently. So I hope I've shown you that there's a lot of different types of energies that can happen within your business. And I love this quote from Albert Einstein: look to nature and you will understand everything. So you've now got these 5 different areas, 5 different business environments. You've got the creative space for possibility and innovation, a connective space for trust and relationships, a consultative space for delivery and co-elevation, a calculative space for measurement and control, and a contemplative space for reflection and renewal. And what I'd really like to suggest is that you don't do all of these activities in the same place. Like I said, my contemplative space used to be my hot tub. A connective space might be going to a cafe. Maybe your desk is your calculative space where you do the measurement and control, and you find some other areas for the consultative and the creative space. But what we tend to do in business is have the same desk, the same area for all of these activities. And what I hope I've shown you is there's a different energy for each of these activities, and therefore would be really prudent for you to try and find a different environment for each of them. So not only that, but how can you use this in a practical way? There are, as we said, different energies to different activities. So I'd really invite you to think about how can you structure your week by the different energies. So here's just an example. You could spend all of Monday on earth type activities. So this is the delivery, the consultative space. Maybe Tuesday morning is your contemplative space, and in the afternoon you jump into a more creative space. Maybe if you do a lot of sales and marketing, maybe you dedicate 2 days a week to your fire space, your connection space. And maybe you only need to spend something like a Friday morning on your calculative space, your metal energy. And you finish the day off or the week off with some more contemplation. How you structure your week will be very dependent on the type of role you're doing. And you can do this whether you are a business leader and you've got a lot of flexibility in a schedule, or even if you're a team member with a set structure, you'll still need to bring in parts of these different energies during the week. But when you really think about structuring and consciously creating your week by the different energies, let me assure you that your productivity will increase, because when we change from a fire type energy to a water type energy, that uses a huge amount of our own personal energy. And so when we can cluster activities of the same type of energy together, we can become a lot more productive and effective. So I'd love for you to share with me at the end of this how you are structuring your week by the different energies, because I think you will find that super, super powerful. I just want to conclude by saying we have all these symbiotic relationships in nature. Everything is interdependent, interconnected, and business is an ecosystem. And as team members and as leaders, we really need to be clear on what is the impact that we're having on other people around us, and what is the impact the environment is having on us. So my invitation to you for the following week and month is to think about what are the different areas I need to work in? How can I find different areas to do different activities? And how can I structure my week to maximize these different types of energies? So what I'd invite you now to do is to take our Turbocharge Your Team quiz, which you can find at businesshorsepower.com/quiz. If you go and take that, it will help you identify different areas of your business that aren't in alignment. And at the end of the quiz, I'd love to invite you to book in a complimentary call with me where we'll help you unpack the results and help you find the first quick win that you can make in your business to get everyone aligned and pulling in the same direction, leveraging these laws of nature to make things much more effective. So please do feel free to connect with me on social media. You'll always find me on LinkedIn at Julia Felton. We have a newsletter on there, The Unbridled Business Revolution. You'll also find my podcast, which is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as my website, Business Horsepower. And the podcast is called Impactful Teamwork. So I hope you found this super useful, and I really look forward to joining you again next month for next month's 20-minute Teamship teaching, where we delve into a different facet of my Unbridled Teamship roadmap, which is the plan and the model and the framework I use to help you create a high performance, cohesive team where everything aligns so that you can create unstoppable momentum in your business. So until next time, bye bye.